Okay, so Vanessa's obviously told us a bit about how you got started and a bit about your initial journey across to Poland. So, just tell us what you saw and what you experienced when you arrived at the border between Poland and Ukraine.
Immense sadness, really. It's a very shocking affair that's going on. I mean, there's nothing I can really say that you haven't probably seen on the television anyway, but I think when you see it close up, when you see it firsthand, it hurts even more. I mean, I turned up there at 6:30 on the Saturday morning, and it was -1 at the time, flurries of snow, and you've got displaced people that are literally totally bewildered. They don't know what's going on or what's happening. And it's quite hard to see. There's no men because the men are not allowed to leave. They have to fight. So it's all usually women and a lot of young women with children.
Yeah.
But it's bad. It's very bad. But to be fair to the Polish people, they've mobilised a small army. I spoke to a cameraman from Al Jazeera who told me sort of up until the mid of last week, tail end of last week, it was bedlam there. You've got hundreds of thousands of people just sat on the border, don't know what to do.
Yeah.
The money's worthless over here, and they don't know. But since then, the Poles, bless them, they've done a marvellous job. They've mobilised an army that are basically coaches that are ferrying the refugees to places in and around Europe, as well as obviously Poland themselves. So
excellent.
In that respect, it's good, yeah. But it is still quite harrowing to see.
I can imagine. Now, tell me, you obviously went across there initially to deliver food and urgent supplies for human refugees. How did you get into looking at the situation regarding all these poor animals?
Well, it was what happened was I was driving home, to be fair. I'd done everything I could do there. It's very hard to get any sense of what can you do because there's no NGOs on the ground that you could find that will say, oh, you need to do this one, because it's all too new. It's only a week old, isn't it?
Of course
At that point, the war's only a week old. So it was all a bit too new and nobody really knows. There was no proper logistics going on. So I thought, okay, well, look, there's nothing more I can achieve here. I'll go home and we'll put some more money together and do another run.
Right.
And I got as far as Krakow, which is about 250 kilometers away from where I was on the border. I was in Medjika. And when Vanessa phoned me up, she told me about this organisation called Network for Animals that has put an email, just a generic email about the plight of animals. And of course, at that point, I'd not really considered them in my. That sounds terrible, but I just hadn't. My immediate thought was the people.
Absolutely.
And then the more you think about it, you go, bloody hell! How many hamsters have been left behind?
Yeah.
How many goldfish have been left behind? They were begging for the basics like food bowls and leads and cages is what they really need, carriers, because I'll tell you why in a second if I may, but they need carriers, that type of thing. So I decided, okay, well, the best thing to do now is go and find them, because we'd obviously done a fun run, we had some money to spend. I thought, well, I'll go and find some in Krakow and then I'll take it back. But there wasn't any.
Right.
There really just wasn't anything worthy of doing it. So I ended up driving to Dresden. I drove back into Germany to Dresden, and I found a huge store in Dresden. I spent about 1,700 quid there.
Yep.
I've got a pickup truck with a trailer on it, and I just literally filled it up and then went back.
Right, and so you went back to the border with loads of cages, and I saw piles of dog food and tins food and things like that. So there were quite a lot of animals actually at the border that refugees had brought across.
Yeah, there were the more mobile animals were coming across, and depending on how the refugees got to the border. if they were coming in via coaches and trains, then no, they were literally leaving their animals at the train stations, padlocked to a wall.
Those with cars and things would be bringing their pets with them, I guess.
Yeah, the individuals, because there were dogs on the border. I took pictures of them. It's still sad to see the pain in their eyes, but they were there. But the biggest problem is you've got millions of people that are displaced. You can imagine how many of those millions of people have pets, and most of them are being left behind.
Absolutely.
So the biggest issue now is the crisis, in the truest sense of the word, is get them back over the border as quickly as possible, and then also send food out to the sanctuaries in Ukraine, because there are sanctuaries in Ukraine that are, they're taking in animals over there, and obviously housing animals ready for the vehicles, the little sort of small ships that are going over there, if you like, to go and take food out to them. Unfortunately, what's happened is the Russians have bombed one of the biggest food factories in the east, and so that's out of commission now. So they've even run out of even more food.
So you get back with your first load from Dresden to the border, and what happens next?
Okay, so I got back there today, earlier on today. I've been to the sanctuary. It was quite a bit of a state, because about 60 cats had just been delivered from a run over. So there were cats everywhere. There's a warehouse here called the Castle where I dropped off all my stuff. Thankfully there's loads of people been bringing over food as well for the animals. I've had my meetings with the feet on the ground here. I will be driving into Ukraine most days this week, as far as this week is concerned. It might probably be the same next week, and dropping off supplies if I have to bring back animals, I will bring them back as well. But the main thing, the most use that me and my vehicle can do is really to take supplies to the sanctuaries in Ukraine.
Yeah, and how far are you actually going into the country? I mean, how safe is it for you to actually be in there?
A lot of the runs are going to be into a place called Lviv, which is essentially on the far, as we look at it, on the western side. That in itself is not without its dangers, but it's not as dangerous as, let's say, if you were going to Kyiv or Donbass or something like that.
So you're not going anywhere near the centre or the east of the country, I hope.
No. Well, not on those runs. There's a run we're doing on Friday, which is about 300 or 400 kilometres into Kyiv. It might get a little bit more sportier then, but certainly not as bad as if you're going like 1,000 kilometres to the other side or something like that.
Oh. Well, I'll take my hat off to you, Nick. I mean, it's incredible what you're prepared to do. What's the plan going forward? You've obviously got this week planned. I mean, how long are you planning to stay in the area?
I don't know, really, Don. It's as fluid as anything. I have no idea. As long as I'm needed, really.
I guess it's dependent on funding as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. We need the funds. I mean, obviously at some point I'll have to come back, but the main thing is the biggest problem. I mean, the real, hardcore problem we've got here is vehicles and people. A lot of the human supplies is a problem, as well as the animal supplies. We need more animal supplies, but even the human supplies that have been brought over, there's now mountains of stuff being dumped on, and that sounds like it's been unceremoniously done. It's not. It's with immense generosity that people are bringing this over, but it actually needs to get into Ukraine.
Yep.
So what the crisis now is not the food. The crisis now is manpower and vehicles to take it in. And so,
for the human point of view, this is for the people that are still there, that are struggling to get stuff in shops and just basically live normally. I'm guessing.
Yeah, because a lot of the refugees that come out aren't here. They're somewhere else in Poland, or they're somewhere in France or Germany or something like that. They're not actually here. Now, that's not to say that the supplies that have been brought over aren't going to be useful to them, because they're being they're being sifted and sorted, and obviously bussed out to where they needed to be. But the supplies need to get into Ukraine. Because it's the people left behind that need the assistance. And obviously, from our perspective, is the animals as well.
Is there anything you want to say to the people who are going to be listening to the podcast later in the week? What would you like to say to them?
Firstly, is the situation is being very fluid and morphing itself on a regular basis. So what happens today might be something slightly different tomorrow. If people want to help, then it really is a case of what do you want to do. Just turning up on the doorstep with a load of stuff is, as indeed like I did, might not be the best way of doing it, because understanding the fluidity of the problem is more critical. For example, if we need vehicles, then are you willing to come over and drive into Ukraine and back? Would you like to fund a vehicle or something along those lines is really more critical. On a personal level, that's what we're aiming for. We're trying to buy the ADA here another ambulance. But even that's becoming a problem because you can't find them, because the last one they bought had to come from Warsaw. So, it's finding the vehicles is really the critical thing.
And is that something you're trying to fund? Surely you're not trying to fund that out of just your own personal fund. Are there other funds that are clubbing together to try and get this vehicle, or is this something you and Vanessa want to do?
No, we are doing it, but we can't do it on our own. We've got a Just Giving page set up, which we'd like to encourage people to add to, and that fund will buy them a new vehicle. We're speaking with other property people that want to help out, and we're also speaking with pet stores in the UK, big chain pet stores in the UK, to see if they can help out. So I think collectively, if everyone just put in a little bit of cash into this fund, then within a short space of time, we should be able to, between us all, buy them the van they need.